read, which says, it's number 54954.3. 54954.3, paragraph C. The legislative body of a local agency shall not prohibit public criticism of the policies, procedures, programs, or services of the agency or acts or the missions of the legislative body. So I just hope that going forward, we won't have anyone prohibiting criticism of town staff or anything like that. So
Actually, I'll take objection to your interpretation of the law, whether correct or incorrect. The Brown Act sets a floor in many ways. And to me, having respect for your council, but even more important, your town staff, just as the government is respectful of you and other speakers, I do not agree with you. And that the meeting protocol that was established, well, many years ago, probably way before I came along, demands and requests that there's reciprocal request of respect going both ways, and that we won't be able to have that kind of open and community forum if we're not respectful for one another. Certainly, you can point out and say, "Yeah, I disagree with you," or something like that, but the tone should be respectful. And so I would have to say, you read some words out of the Brown Act, but remember the Brown Act is only sort of setting the modest standard. We try to rise above that standard and to treat each other with respect. It's the only way we're going to be able to get some stuff.
I agree, Mr. Mayor, and in reading the interpretation of that statute, you are absolutely free when someone is disrespectful, is using foul language, or any of that. But criticism of the town staff is absolutely included in the free speech of that section of the Brown Act. So I respectfully disagree.
That's right.
Valerie Hood, 79 Dominion of Fairfax. What will be the traffic impact on the Ross Valley from the County Board of Supervisors rezoning of a number of parcels along the Francis Drake corridor for 30 units per acre mixed-use development? Marin County rezoned the 7-Eleven shopping center at Oak Manor Drive and the Sunnyside Nursery property on the other side of Shadow Creek in White Hill School, both 30 units per acre. Why does that not count as part of Fairfax's state that flows? I don't need an answer right now, but I just would like that to be considered in future.
Any other comments?
I'm John Sargent. I'm a resident of Fairfax. I also want to speak on the subject that the prior speakers spoke on about people identifying themselves and in regard to the Brown Act. Michelle was kind enough to check with Janet on the legality of that question. I believe your lawyer previously gave the opinion that no, people couldn't be required to state their address, name and address. My interest was further piqued by a letter I saw in the IJ that accused Councilman Goddard of bringing in extra people at the last meeting to support her cause. And I didn't think she'd do something like that, so I wrote you an email, if you may recall, although I didn't get any response to it. And in essence said, I didn't believe you would do something like that, but I was concerned when I didn't get your response. So I'd like a response to that email about that. I think it's important.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sargent, would you resend that, please, because I did not receive it.
I'm sorry.
Would you please resend it? I would be very happy to respond to your email. I did not receive it, and I can take responsibility for that, but I did not receive it. So please resend it.
You did receive it though, right?
I didn't receive it,
Really?
honestly.
I would.
Please resend it. I didn't have
Okay.
to respond.
I would urge you. I'll check my email stuff, and I urge you to check yours also. Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, the Brown Act interpretation is correct. I still think it's very important for you to know who's speaking to you. I've had offers from people that have these red shirts on to assist me and by coming to these meetings and stating their opinion about what goes on in Fairfax. But that's not really who you need to be talking to or hearing. what you need, I mean, it's fine for people outside the community to have their opinion, but as lawyers would say, that kind of speech shouldn't be given much weight. Who you really want to hear from is residents of Fairfax. They're the people that elect you. They're the people you answer to. And it's very important that speakers that live in Fairfax give you their opinion. And as for regard to outsiders, well, you give that, as I said, the way you deserve it. I therefore recommend you do the following, as the previous speaker, I think, said, is that you state at the beginning of the meeting, we do not require a person's name and address, but you are urged, if you're a Fairfax resident, to state so. I think that might be okay and fall within the parameters of the Brown Act. Thank you.
Well, let's ask the most important person in the room on that matter, counsel.
Thank you. The only thing the Brown Act requires is that you not require somebody to state their name and address or identify themselves. You certainly may ask them to, but you cannot require it.
Okay, so since we now have clarification on that for everybody here, that will be the way we approach it. If you, correct me if I'm wrong, if folks want to give their name and address, okay. If you don't want to give your name and address, that's okay too. It's voluntary. Now,
My name is Liesl. I live in Fairfax. I think everyone knows where I live. I'm not sure you need my address other than that I live in Fairfax. I just wanted to thank the council for making this a safer space for many of us to speak. The whole point is to have citizen input. And you had a number of people who spoke at the last meeting who have told me in the past that they were intimidated and afraid of speaking in public. And it was a really new thing for them. And I think that this particular forum and this particular topic has brought a lot of people out of the woodworks that live in Fairfax who maybe been afraid to speak in public before. And I appreciated the fact that some research was looked into to make sure that those people felt comfortable speaking, as well as people who feel fine stating their address. I think knowing that they live in Fairfax is probably enough for us to know that they are Fairfax residents. And I'm not sure there's any requirement that we go and check people's addresses to verify that they lived in Fairfax before we hear their testimony, so their public comments. So thank you very much for having the forethought to think that through and to make this more open forum for our citizens to express their opinions.
you're welcome. Sir.
Yes, my name is Clayton Smith, and I live in Mill Valley. Concerning the comment about the other people who are not from Fairfax having their feelings and their input regarded, I would hope you would. I lived in Fairfax from 1973 until 1979 up on Hillside Drive, and I left a good deal of my heart in this town. And what happens to this town, if it's harmful to this town, really is a pain. It's a hurtful thing to me personally, and I'm really want to feel that you'll take the input of people who have some part of their emotional investment in this town to heart when we comment here, because we're not just commenting in the abstract. Often we're commenting because we really love this town and we love its specific character, and we really are here often, I think, to help with that preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there other folks who would like to talk?
Good evening, Jody Timms, 290 Cascade. I'm here on behalf of the Commission on Aging as your town representative. So I wanted to give a short, hopefully not too long report here, just of some things that have been happening that of interest to seniors and all of us who live with seniors or are seniors. So first I just wanted to mention that the that the Commission on Aging did have a table at the Fairfax Festival. We gave away a lot of literature, particularly on food stamps and some of the nutrition programs that the county has for seniors. So I brought some flyers for council members about that so that you're aware of it. I think it was really good for us to have that kind of visibility so that I can advocate and the commission can advocate for seniors. Two other things coming up soon. One is the next meeting for the Commission on Aging, which is going to be in Orange City next Wednesday with a topic topic on the Road to Life Drive Yourself, which is looking really good. So if people want any information about that, they can go to the Commission on Aging website, or I have a flyer. And then also our very own Ross Valley Seniors, which meets here at the Women's Building once a month, is meeting tomorrow for their annual barbecue. So I encourage seniors who might be listening or watching to come on out to that. And then their next meeting on August 7th, they are going to talk about food stamps. There'll be somebody from the county. So if you know any seniors, or you are a senior who thinks that you might need some extra support around buying your good nutrition, come on down to that meeting on the 7th. The next thing I just wanted to mention, maybe many of you saw it, maybe not, but the civil grand jury put a report out this week called Aging in Marin, What's the Plan? And I wanted to just mention a few things about that. Again, in terms of the numbers of seniors growing in Marin, will be going from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3. People will be over 60 in the next 15 years. So most of us, or many of us, have heard about the silver tsunami, which is a term that came out of the report, the grand jury report in 2007. So this one quote says, "The big wave has broken on our shores." So the fastest growing group of seniors in Marin County are those who are 85 and older. I'm seeing many more people in their 90s, their late 90s, and their hundreds at the Redwoods, where I work part-time, full-time during the week. A couple of the findings that came out of this report: one, that there is not a comprehensive long-term strategic and financial plan for low-income seniors in the county, which I think all of us would agree would be a great idea to have, and that also there's a lack of recognized leadership within the county. The report is recommending that the county step forward and provide that leadership and help get that plan in place. And I support that very much, and at the same time, I think the era we're in right now encourages multiple fronts of leadership as opposed to one person or one entity necessarily in charge. So one of the things they also mentioned as a recommendation is something called navigator programs, which I think would be a great thing for us to have in Fairfax, perhaps a couple Fairfax volunteers and I could work together to be navigators to helping seniors figure out the maze of services that are available, because there are a lot of services seniors don't know about, and then there's a lot of lack for services that we don't have. So I'll just finish by saying also, they mentioned in the report that the biggest issue for seniors that was outside of the scope of that report is housing. I think we're all aware of that, and the importance of more housing and affordable housing for seniors, which we know is a topic of interest for us here in Fairfax. And Mayor Weinstoff and I are planning to meet at some point soon and really put our heads together about how to address the needs for seniors in our town. So I'm really looking forward to that. So just wanted to let you all know about some of those things, and if people have any interest, you can reach me through my email, joditims@comcast.net. Thank you.
Thank you, as always, Joe. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during open time? Sir?
Hi, I'm Stephen Nessel. I'm from San Rafael, and I don't mind saying that. And the reason why I don't mind saying that is what happens in Fairfax happens to all of Marin. And though I don't come here that often, except on the weekends to have fun, we drive past Sir Francis Drake on a daily basis. So we're concerned about traffic. We're concerned about the urbanization of Marin in general. But I want to make a second point, and that is following on our last speaker. And I agree that senior housing is the #1 thing that Marin needs, especially low-income seniors. And if you are considering a project, I urge you to take a look at the Rotary Village project in Lucas Valley. It's about 10 units per acre, and it fits very much within the character of our community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Speaking, I think, for many people, it's often impossible to know where the great wisdom is going to come from. So whether you're from Fairfax or from Any other public comments during open time? Yes, please step forward.
Hi, my name's Laura Seligson, and I actually am a resident of San Anselmo, but I decided to come because I'm also concerned about traffic and about loss of habitat, change to aesthetic, change to the character of Marin. I've lived here over 20 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, and just very recently, I think we've all noticed the very high building on the corner at College of Marin, and then the very high building where the New Book Passage along the freeway in Corte Madera, and then the very high building on La Doma in Mill Valley. It feels to me as if there's a change of scale happening, and I hope I'm not just repeating or saying anything irrelevant, wasting people's time. But my big point is that I would love to see existing buildings repurposed for affordable housing. And a friend here was just talking about rent control. I think that's great. I think the reality of carrying capacity, whether that means from a human point of view or from a full habitat point of view, has to be considered, and I'm not in favor of the rezoning and the increased building.
Other public comment?
Thank you. Andrew Aston, I live on Portage Avenue, and I have 12 years. I just wanted to clarify, as I did in the newspaper, that I made the request to clarify the Brown Act, and I wanted to clarify the reason that I did it, which was not for some nefarious, mysterious corporate purposes, but because I feel that, for example, right now, I know that at least 10 people are watching me that I know and that are going to tell me tomorrow, oh, I saw you on TV. This is no longer a little small town proceeding. It's a public, very public proceeding on the internet, and so I think there are privacy concerns, and that's why I asked for that clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Wendy?
Hi, Wendy Callens, and I just want to speak in terms of, this notion that you have to be a resident of Fairfax to care about what's happening in Fairfax. Some of us work here. We actually spend more time here than many of the residents do. I've been working in Fairfax for 35 years. And we don't get a vote, but we should have a say in what's going on. And those of us who live in the valley, we don't have a vote, but we shop here. We have to travel through here to go everywhere. This is the only town we have. And so it feels a little like there's an intimidation going on, that somehow you don't live here, you don't get to say anything. And I really hope that's not the intent of what I've been hearing here tonight. Thank you.
Other public, open space? Open time, public? All right, seeing none, we'll close this part of the meeting and move on to the consent calendar. Number 4, 5, and 6. Number 4 on consent, and 5 and 6 are all addressing the issue that everybody's mostly here for tonight. So I would request of the council that we pull 4 so that we have 4, 5, and 6 as a unified conversation. And folks who want to speak and speak on 4, 5, or 6 all at one time, and don't have to decide on the number 4, on the 5, and or number 6. So, yes?
Yes, point of order, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to object to your decision to combine 3 items on the agenda. Item number 6 is a public hearing. It has been noticed. It's a quasi-judicial hearing. You cannot mix those items. You need to have them separately. There are different issues. There are different nuances that people may want to speak to on each of those issues. I urge the council not to combine them up, but to hear the residents of Marin County on all 3 issues. Thank you.
Council?
What I would suggest is if you want to pull that one item, let's just pull it and consider it separately.
Before, okay. But 5 and 6, do we have everything now?
About 3.
We can pull that too.
Yeah, 3 is on
But I think the point of order is that they should be separate, considered separately.
Well, let's see what the attorney says.
Well, if you want to, they're listed on here separately, as long as you allow people to speak on any of the I think your concern is that you're worried about people trying to decide which one they want to speak on, and being confused by that. It's all sort of one issue, and different parts of one issue. So as long as you actually, hold the hearing in number 6, I don't see any issue with combining them as such so that people aren't confused as to which item they may want to speak to. For example, I could see someone getting up and being told, well, no, that's not really your item, you need to wait till number 6. Instead, letting people speak and not having to worry about which one they want to speak to. Because people, when they speak on this item, are probably going to be speaking about multiple items on the agenda.
Mayor, might it work for us to pull number 6 and consider it separately as it is a public hearing and listen to 3, 4, 5 together, and then people can speak? Would that satisfy the council?
The point was, I don't have an opinion on this. It's just in prior meetings, folks asked for a roadmap that they could understand from these multiple items that were together, when they should speak, and it was a little confusing. So when we set this thing up, my conversation earlier with the manager was how best to ensure that the community would have the opportunity to fully express their thoughts without getting up and being redundant. If they want to speak on 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, to be able to do so at any one time within the full breadth. It doesn't mean that we are going to in any way diminish any of these or not, attend to the procedures that apply to 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's just an opportunity for the public to speak broadly as they feel most comfortable.
Is your intent to only give 3 minutes to all the items, or to give 3 minutes for each item?
Oh, that's really the point. No, if people want 3 minutes on 3 and 3 minutes on 6, no, they should have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, I don't think anyone's going to be confused here about which items it is. Thank you.
Michael McIntosh. Actually, to follow up on that, I would very much like to keep these separate. And the reason why is they are slight. There's nuances between them, and they do speak to one collective idea. But the reason I push separate is so that we can probably have the opportunity to see how our council is going to review these items and wait on these items. This is not a one yes or no issue. This is an issue to see how the council is going to best represent us and represent the community going forward. So I would very much appreciate it if you could keep these separate so we can hear your input on the specific examples and hear your vote. Thank you.
The manager would like to work.
So I think when we talked about this, Mr. Mayor, we saw that the items 4, 5, and 6 were somewhat related at different levels, and that there could be an opportunity for someone to speak on 3, but there would be comments on 3, there would be comments that really relate to 6 also. So from the staff perspective, we thought perhaps if you open all the items and talk about them together, you could just have one staff report that just covers all the items. Then when people come up to speak, then those broad comments are actually incorporated into your public hearing, which is the item of which creates the record, and then you can use that in your deliberations later. Now, part of it will be, perhaps we can wait until we get a staff presentation and hear the recommendation, and then perhaps that changes a little bit what's the public's thinking in terms of how we're going to address each issue. I will say in terms of combining items, I think 4, 5, and 6 makes sense. I'm not too sure about item 3. I think you should just consider item 3 right now. It seems pretty much standalone, and perhaps comments on that are more specific. So that's just a suggestion.
Is there any objection to the manager's recommendation?
Just for clarification then, item 6 is a public hearing item. It's been noticed as a public hearing item. I think it should be considered separately to make a clear record. 3 is a standalone item. 4 and 5 are really discussion items. And I know it's kind of form over substance, but if we're going to be combining items, I think the public hearing item should be separate. That would be my motion.
I gotta say that I go with the manager to allow him to go forward and give a unified staff report for 4, 5, and 6, so that the full breadth of the issue is considered rather than trifurcated.
Okay. If we want to combine the staff report, that's one thing. I think then we've got to consider public comment, and whether we're going to limit public comment to 3 minutes for items.
No, I think that as we've been going forward here, what I've tried to do is be extremely relaxed on public comment. I know Michelle is running the machine over there, and she looks at me when folks, blow through the 3-minute level, but my feeling is everybody's come out, this is the issue of our time right now, and if folks want to bleed a little over the 3 minutes, I know everybody's respectful of everybody else's time, and are trying very hard to stay within the 3 minutes, but my habit, if we go over a little bit, it's not the end of the world. If you have significant comments on a number of these and you can't get through it in your 3 minutes, be respectful of the larger community, but my habit, we're not going to drop the hammer on you if you go to 4 minutes. We got nothing else to do. So with that, I would say I would go with the manager's recommendation. Just to recap, we have 1 and 2. If the council agrees to those items on consent, we'll pull number 3, talk about it separately, and then go with the staff report on 4, 5, and 6. And folks can stand up and address issues, and if they want to call out 4, 5, 6, they can, or else speak generally to the entire comment.
And if they choose more than 1 item, they would get more time.
Indeed they will.
Okay.
As they would.
And basically, we're incorporating public comment on 4 and 5 into the public.
Right, because if we did them separately, they would have 3 minutes on each one, so they will have the appropriate time as otherwise allowed. Let's do that. On the consent calendar, on number 1 and 2, do we have agreement on this? Do I have a motion?
May I ask a really quick question on number 2, without pulling it and making it in the lineup? Yeah. So in terms of the MTC grant application, so we're approving the resolution, but my question is there a time, and this is just a question of protocol, that we look at and review the application, or is that already been submitted? John, you worked on preparing that, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, this application is basically fleshed out more in this, and, this is a letter accompanying the application, but there's already in front of the Transportation Authority this application, so.
Okay.
But it would definitely help our
For the
application.
resolution. Okay, thanks.
So with that, do I have a motion on 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Cola Reed, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Let's pull 3 and 4 and discuss them right now. And why don't we hold our council reports and comments and town manager report for afterwards? Yes. Okay, pulling number 3, I believe, Michelle, this was yours. Do you want to speak to this, or Garrett, do you want to?
Actually, I had one comment. In my staff report, by mistake, I wrote July 2nd, and actually the affidavits were filed on June 2nd.
Okay.
Today is the last.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments they want to address to the clerk? Seeing none, this is number 3, certification of petition for a referendum against ordinance number 778. Does anybody in the public want to address number 3? Michael?
Michael McIntosh. I realize that staff has a lot of time, and I'm the first one to say that I appreciate Michelle, but I think that it might be beneficial.
Can't hear you.
Okay, I'll do it, I'll just be louder like this. I for one really. Okay, I for one very much appreciate Michelle. I think that when issues like this of importance come up, if there might be a mechanism where she was allotted the time that she could actually review, for instance, the petition, and say, oh, there might be a deficiency, so that could have been addressed much sooner. I think it would have alleviated a lot of the problems and discussions that we had, and made it more for more open forum. So if there's a way in the future to allocate the allowance, should such another petition or something come forward, that she can review that in a more timely manner, I think that would help the community at large. Thank you.
Michelle, would you like to address that?
Sure. Actually, the California state law gave me 30 days to review it, and I was within that 30-day period.
Well, you can't talk, if you want to come up.
It wasn't a complaint that we were in or out of a requirement or a guideline. I'm just saying that something like this that has the interest of community, and an interested community is a valuable asset for our town. I would just hope that maybe we could allot her time among her other duties, that she could actually focus and say, you know what, this is an important item that maybe I should try to review and get back today. That's what I'm trying to say, because I realized that she was very compliant, and we're well within our rules. It's just something that more timely might help the community at large.
Michelle?
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Mayor, council members, Frank Akerman, came out of Fairfax. This is the third referendum that has been presented to a Fairfax Town Council since I've been involved with the town of Fairfax. The first one was when the town council adopted a rent control ordinance. A referendum was run against that rent control ordinance back in the 70s. That referendum qualified for the ballot. It was certified by the town clerk. The town council put that measure on the ballot, and it lost about 76% no, 24% yes. That was the first referendum. The second referendum was in the 80s, very similar to some of what's included in Ordinance 778. It was a redevelopment of downtown Fairfax and the Sir Francis Drake corridor for a mixed-use development before mixed use ever became kind of an in thing. And that time, the citizens of Fairfax collected 1,000 signatures in 14 days. And it came to the council, and the council at first, I remember the mayor saying, this is anarchy, what's going on here? And in the end, the council voted to rescind everything they did. It never did go to the ballot, and that was good because it saved the council from a very divisive election. And then the third referendum is this one that has just come up. And this one took 12 days to gather 1,000 signatures. So Michelle should be commended for her work. And we were a little chagrined at first because we had missed one of the 8 requirements on the age. They had to say they were 18 or older. But we did turn in affidavits from all of the petition circulators. So I thank you.
Any other commenters on number 3? Okay, then 3 is done, and we'll move to this combined staff report on number 4, 5, and 6. Garrett?
Mayor, just point of order, so do we accept the certification now? And do we move to accept the certification? So I would move to accept.
Okay, so we have Bragman, Reed, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, now, Garrett, take us through 4, 5, 6, staff report.
Okay, so obviously this relates to item 4, 5, and 6. There will be a combined staff report. Before I start, I probably should make this more clear in terms of what the staff is going to be recommending. It's actually going to be recommending the council continue its discussion after hearing public comment and the public hearing on the issue related to the petition in terms of deciding whether to place it on the ballot or repeal and the actual repeal action itself. So we are recommending that you go ahead, consider all the comments, have a discussion, and make a decision, continue the decision actually to July 16th. Our rationale is that that then gives you this opportunity to consider this information as well as, and we'll touch on that, the community forum that you scheduled for July 12th, and that gives you an opportunity to then digest that information and include that in your discussions on the 16th. So with that, then what I'd like to do is go ahead and do the combined staff report. And with council permission, I'd like to go over a little more of the history related to how we got here again. So with that, going back to April 2012, the council actually adopted the amended general plan. In October 2013, the council adopted the housing element. As part of both those documents, it did have implementing land use requirements. And so Ordinance 778, which is in question, actually included those different land use directives. So moving forward with that, then in January 30th, the Planning Commission actually adopted a resolution recommended to the council that adopt Ordinance 778, which I forgot, just as a quick summary, Ordinance 778 rezoned CH properties to CC, rezoned 4 properties to PDD, and rezoned a certain number of properties into public domain, and did some other administrative adjustments to the code. So with that, then February 13th of this year, the council competition with national branding. And part of the issue was we discovered that the zoning at the time, CH, didn't allow to adjust that, did not provide a provision related to formula-based businesses, and converting CH to CC then would have closed that requirement. So that's why we moved forward with that action. We added these other zoning actions because as we went through the process, we discovered that the zoning map reference in the general plan had these other land use actions, and it wasn't adopted by ordinance, which is required by law. So in addition to CH to CC, we added the other items so that the zoning map would be consistent with the general plan. And we tried to simplify it and just do the land use first, and then come back with the zoning text changes. Obviously, that created great concern in the community, but that's kind of where we are. So back to the dates. March 5th, the council adopted ordinance 778. April 2nd, the council actually had an agenda item to reconsider the second reading of ordinance 778. At that time, prior to that, the referendum petition was submitted, and at that time, the council could not take any action. On May 1st, the town clerk determined that she could not certify the petition due to a certain defect. So at that time, on May 7th, and prior to actually the certification of the petition, the council actually took action and directed staff to repeal ordinance 778. Now at that time, we indicated, and that's the process we're going through, is that the process to repeal is the same as the process to approve. So we had to go back to the planning commission and then take the ordinance to the council. So on May 29th, that's what we did. The planning commission considered the repeal ordinance 779. They are not recommending the repeal ordinance 779. However, it is advisory, and that the council can choose to do whatever it believes is appropriate, given the information that we consider.
778.
Right, the repeal of 778, the planning commission is not recommending that the council pursue that. So, again, with the certification of the petition, which you just saw, that kind of brings us to where are we right now. So the petition itself requires the council consider two statutory issues. One is you either repeal the ordinance, or the other is you place it on the ballot. So those are two issues. Now, interesting enough, because the council previously directed staff to repeal the ordinance, that's also on the agenda this evening. And that's one of the items that you have as an option. Now, I think as a little background, staff would like to point out that one of the reasons that the council directed staff to repeal the ordinance was really we determined that we really wanted a fresh start. There's lots of concerns and issues raised. I think as staff, we recognize, yes, there are issues and concerns, and we wanted to restart the process. So by that, if we repeal, then we would go back through and address the issues as best we can, and perhaps take the action separately. So PDD separate, maybe by the different developments, CHCC separate, and then the PD, which is public domain properties, would go back through the process as a separate process. And we thought that would be a good thing to do. Now, within that process, the council on May 7th also directed staff to schedule a community forum. The thought pattern that the community forum will allow a better opportunity for the community and the council to be able to discuss all those different issues out there that were raised by ordinance 778. And so that is scheduled, actually that community forum, which is an item on this agenda, which was item number 4. And that meeting is scheduled for Saturday, July 12th at 1 to 3 p.m. in this building, Women's Club. Part of that discussion, the forum, really was an opportunity to provide an opportunity for staff to kind of provide an overview of the general plan and the housing element. Provide an opportunity for the council, community, and staff to kind of discuss the issues related to ordinance 778. And within that, what we would have as part of the forum would be there'd be display boards addressing all the different land use issues brought up by ordinance 778, the concerns that staff had heard from the community, as well as possible solutions to address those different concerns. So the idea is a forum, create discussion, really encourage the public to come out and share their thoughts. I mean, in general, we've always encouraged the community to share their thoughts with the council now related to concerns. Staff has done a preliminary review of the housing element general plan. We have found some issues, inconsistencies that we will be recommending the council address. We will be recommending some solutions, but it's just a preliminary review. If others have issues now, or they found inconsistencies, we're encouraging people to either present that now or present it at the workshop. So at least it's out there, we can create it on a list and develop a plan for how to address those different issues. For the workshop, in order to provide a very neutral environment, we have retained a third-party facilitator. We are planning to videotape the meeting. We do plan to have cards so people can write questions in the event that they don't want to speak at the meeting. We will have a Spanish translator if needed, based on the attendance. And so we really see this as an opportunity really to have more in-depth discussion with the community, an opportunity for council to have that type of discussion. At the end of the meeting, our hope is that the facilitator would be able to summarize issues. We would have a flip chart recording all the different comments and hopefully have some direction in terms of staff's recommendations and how to proceed in terms of different solutions to address the different issues. Thought pattern is we would summarize all that, bring that back to the council at a future meeting, have a discussion and get direction from council on how they think they'd like to proceed. Within that, I think staff can also provide what we'll call a work plan that sets out a game plan for how the timeline in terms of having the different discussions for the different type of zoning actions. So with that, I think the staff recommendation is that for the forum item, it was more of an update. But if the council wants to modify what we're proposing in terms of structure, that would be great to receive that feedback. In terms of the petition itself, the 2 actions to undertake, again, we are kind of recommending that you consider comments, then continue the action decision on that until July 16th. And for the actual repeal action, which interestingly was directed before the petition was actually certified, we're also recommending that you can open the public hearing, but then continue discussion on the public hearing to July 16th and make your determination at that time. So with that, that concludes the staff report.
Do any of the council members have questions of the manager?
Just a quick question. I think it's implied in the staff report on item 4 that the possibility of having future community forums, as we move forward in the stepwise process potentially, that we would have more forums with the community rather than just doing it in a council meeting, which doesn't give as much give and take. Is that true?
That's true, and I think in the staff recommendation, once we have a forum, we probably would point out, here's maybe a month that you may want to have a forum. I use an example, we're probably going to want a forum or a workshop to talk about CHCC.
Or more than
Or more than one. So it would lay out sort of a plan of here's the issues to consider and talk about.
Thank you.
I would just also encourage, basically, we would like to hear what the public concerns are and questions are. And I think in the event that somebody can't make it, isn't here tonight, or can't make it to the forum workshop on the 12th, that they can also email comments into town staff before that forum, and so that there could be some provision of information that way. Because basically this is it's supposed to be an informative process, so that would encourage that.
Renee?
I had actually requested that we pull this from the consent calendar and add it in to allow for public comment, as we're going to put things together, but public comment directly related to this, because I want to make sure that there isn't that confusion in the community, and that if anyone has grave concerns about how the format or process of this forum is organized, that we hear them tonight or in a letter, so that we can address them before we go into that room, so that we can really make the best of that time together. So please feel free to share that in your comments.
Other questions? Well, with that, let's open up the public comment period, and those of you feel free to either give your name and address, don't give your name and address as you feel comfortable doing so, and also you should feel free to speak on 4, 5, and 6. And if you had intended on speaking on a couple of those, you will be provided,
James Fair, Canyon Road, Fairfax. Procedurally, I was hoping that Gary or somebody could kind of go over some of these terms that might help some of us kind of clarify. So there's a commercial highway, and then there's central commercial, and there's planned development district. I'm a little foggy on all that, so it might help for some of us to know what some of that means. If you guys would kind of talk a little bit about what some of that means, it might help direct some of our comments, and then I'll have some comments a little later in the night as to particulars. Thank you.
That's a really good question. Garen, can you give us a little, Jim, can you, why don't you give us a little primer here on these arcane and technical terms?
Okay, the planned district development is oriented towards like the condo developments that occurred in the 70s and 80s in town, where many units were built, which is often referred to as planned unit development. It's a sequenced process. Each of the zones, the planned district development, the highway commercial, the central commercial, are specific areas of the town that are zoned those categories, and the abbreviations are, CH, PDD, etc. In the zoning ordinance, which is part of the town code, it's chapter 17, it's available online, go to the town's website, go to the town code. The zoning ordinance specifies what's allowed in each of those zones. So I invite you to go online, go to the town code on the website, and review what the definition is of each of those zones. Planned district development, central commercial, highway commercial. In essence, again, planned district development is a three-step, very arduous process for a development of a significant size on a significant piece of property to go in. We've had the bigger projects upstream, if you will, Cascade Canyon homes, that sort of thing, that were developed under that zone. Highway commercial is essentially the ends of the town, the commercial areas of town that were more oriented towards the automobile. If you look at the list of allowed uses in that category in the zoning ordinance, you'll find that they're more auto-centric uses. And then finally, the central commercial zone, if you go to the central commercial section of the zoning ordinance, Title 17, and it defines it, it's the more historic heart of town and has a different set of allowed uses or uses that can be incorporated into a building under a conditional use permit. Does that help?
More or less.
Yeah.
Well, can I add actually that there are people, and we have been working toward a glossary of terms so that when people come to the forum, you might have a very easy, user-friendly way to define some of these things so that when the conversation starts going fast, that at least there's a baseline from which we can all start to have the conversation.
May I add, I think that this has actually been a really helpful question and focus on this, and that we should print out the definitions of each of the zones for the event. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Mimi Willard.
Push the button.
Okay. All right. My name is Mimi Willard, and I want to comment on item number 4 regarding the community forum. And I think it's a really super idea to have a community forum and to further inclusive discussion and even encourage our canine friends here. But I want to urge you in the strongest terms to do this, conduct that kind of meeting, just as you're conducting this meeting, as an open, inclusive, flexible process, and to not go with a facilitator. There is a very long and unfortunate history in Marin of the use of facilitators that has caused, in many instances, a fair amount of anger and suspicion and ill will, because the facilitated process is often very controlled, very structured. People can only enter their comments through index cards. They're strictly held to the period of time. Whatever they say gets written in somebody else's words onto a whiteboard, it goes into the report, or it's further filtered. And people end up leaving feeling that there was a process that had a preordained conclusion that they were manipulated to participate in. And I think you got something really good going here. Don't mess with it, don't waste the money, don't risk having people leave with a bad feeling instead of a good feeling about their democratic process. Thank you.
That's an interesting thought. Garrett, would you like to speak to why staff felt that in this instance, the facilitator, I might say to you that I sort of envision the process in the Fairfax approach, which is vaguely controlled chaos. And the role of the facilitator would not be, I'm sensitive to what you're saying, would not be hijacked. But Garrett, can you sort of drill down on why, or what the role of the facilitator might be in this instance?
We're not planning any charrettes or any reports in terms of it. The role of facilitator, we thought, would be really to use a true term, facilitate discussion. So help the council and the community, and the goal is to let anyone speak who would like to speak, but some people may prefer not to speak. They can write their questions down. And the goal is 2 hours is a pretty long time. And it's trying to give everyone an opportunity to speak, as well as facilitate. So if they hear something and a person's saying it 5 or 6 times, we're writing it on the flip chart in their words as they want it, and then moving on. Because otherwise, we just really want an opportunity for everyone to have that opportunity to participate. Just like the setting is going to be the council be on the floor as part of the group and have that discussion. Plus, staff is sensitive to the issue of staff would be facilitators. We didn't want it to appear that because we prepared the documents that we were biased in any way. So we thought it'd be better to bring in a neutral third party.
Who is it going to be?
At this point, it's Joan, I always get her last name, Chaplin from MIT.
What is MIT?
No, MIT is a firm that's based in, I think they're in Oakland or San Francisco. Berkeley, that's it. They're Berkeley. They're very experienced in just doing facilitation. I'm not asking them to do charrettes. I've used the firm many times for typical similar type projects that were my term, perhaps highly controversial. And we use them to just facilitate the discussion, get down, to just take the notes on the flip chart and just move it forward so that it doesn't bog down on just one issue or another, because there's going to be lots of issues to discuss.
I might say to the comment that, as Barbara, I think, wisely pointed out, it is not going to be the last event like this. We're going to need a number of them. So we'll see how the facilitator thing goes. If it doesn't, pen out for us with value, we certainly won't bring it back the second time. But we'll take a crack at it and see if it benefits us in this initial conversation. So,
Clayton Smith again. I was just at a meeting with the NPS we had down at the community center in Tamalpais Valley regarding the revision of the general management plan for the park system in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. And this choice of facilitator was a person who was so insipid, quite frankly, that the audience became enraged. And I mean truly enraged. And people were shouting, and there was almost an altercation with Mr. Kinsey and a large male member of the audience. And it was a very counterproductive and very unhappy experience. I think people walked away polarized in a fashion that is going to take a great deal of work to overcome, so we can actually get to something that will reflect community cooperation. And I'd like to put it in like a little bit of humor, but it actually at the end of the evening was exhausted. People were very exhausted and depressed and frustrated and felt alienated. So going back to this particular, and this also happened in the Marin County housing element workshops that they did, where they brought in some women, and I hope that I'm And I will say, this CMG or whoever this, if this Joan person, well, I'm afraid, sounds like she may have been that facilitator. And if she is, I'm going to tell you, this is very bad news for your town. That person in that firm, whatever firm you choose to just bring you a facilitator, must not have any involvement with ABAG, MTC, or Plan Bay area.
Yeah.
This is important. I think the people in this room understand exactly what I'm saying, because these people come with the agenda. And it's,
I get it.
okay.
I can tell you, if it looks like the facilitator is stepping out of the Fairfax way, the facilitator will be corrected.
Well, will you please ensure that that person is not the person who was facilitating the Marine County housing element? Will you please do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Gary, if you'll look into that. Thank you. Kiki?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Kiki Laporta, Glen Drive, Fairfax. At a couple of meetings ago, I believe Councilmember Goddard requested that a point of law or code be offered to the public so that they would not have to state their address in addressing the council. And I'd like to suggest that that's great because it could protect those folks from harassment. But I think it would also be good for the audience present and for the council members here to know whether someone who is addressing the council and this gathering is a resident or an employer or employee within Fairfax.
Kiki, I think you scrolled in right after we spoke, and on that issue, I believe that's exactly how we're going.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Fairfax. I just wanted to suggest that we keep having different types of community forums. I think you do need a facilitator just so that you get everyone talking and you don't have just one person take over a grandstand, but the choice of the facilitator is obviously really important for making people feel comfortable for speaking. Another thing that I think that Fairfax might want to look into when we've been going through this, I was thinking of some experience I had working in San Francisco. San Francisco worked with a firm that's unfortunately disclosed, but it was called Democracy Speaks, or America Speaks, that really worked on deliberative democracy and deliberative polling. When I worked for San Francisco State, we actually got together a process whereby we selected, I think, 500 people by random sample from the city of San Francisco from all walks of life and got them together in a room in focus groups where they researched different sides of various parts of the city budget and got together and talked about their understanding of it, what they wanted to see as a strategic plan. It was a really great interactive process. In fact, the person who put that together subsequently moved to Fairfax, and it's not me, although I did work on it. And the reason I'm sort of suggesting to look at different ways of talking about this is that when you have a community forum, you're seeing here right now all the hotheads from all sides of the angle of the issue, and you're not necessarily seeing the people in between who are out shopping at the farmer's market or doing something else tonight. And so it might be good to think of other ways as well to draw all kinds of people in, not just the people who feel the most strong on either side, because it'll be really fun and exciting, and I think there'll be a lot of fireworks, and there may be people who are in the middle who need to be both educated or already educated about the issues and have something to say, but may not choose to do it in what they see as a very possibly contentious form. So just think of other ways to involve this.
It's a very good idea, and yes, we will.
I was going to say there's a Center for Deliberative Democracy at Stanford with Fishkin is the big author on this, but anyway, we work with him in the American States.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I, for one, if we have a facilitator, whenever the facilitator will have some opinion on this matter. So rather than spend funds outside the community, I hope that we will look within our own community, independent of maybe somebody will be a little bit more biased one way or another, or even ask for our town clerk to hold this little state inside the community. I know Michelle's like, no, but no, honestly, there's no reason that I can justify why our community wants to spend money for somebody else. We have our opinions, and I think what we're all trying to do is just share those opinions. And I'd like to keep our funds in-house for maybe a better project. Thank you.
else going on with that is, inviting another confusing element.
Other commenters? This is commenting on 4, 5, and 6, so certainly you all need to show up here. So, come on up.
Take that opportunity to speak. James Fair, Canyon Road, Fairfax. First, I just wanted to thank the town council for the continued and multitude of hours that you volunteer for the town. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you all. I appreciate that. I want to also thank the staff and the various committees that kind of work behind the scenes to support us all. I know that there is a lot of work that goes into just putting a meeting on like this and getting us all here. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's our town, and even if you're a resident or somebody that works here or just enjoy coming here, it's important that we're all out here, letting people know what we think. So that's all great to see everybody here. I guess I want on record saying that I do support some increased housing in Fairfax, as long as it's done in a sensible fashion. I do have some questions that come up when I think about housing in downtown, which it seems like, as best I can do, some of the zoning changes were putting some increased housing and some adjustments in the downtown zone. Two specific questions I had were how increased housing in downtown might cause a change from, or cause a change to the downtown that we currently have. So with that, people living in downtown, a lot more people living in downtown, would they want less noise, less bar traffic? And that would not really be something that I might be into all the time. I'm not downtown a lot listening to music, but when I do come through town late at night, getting off work, if there's a lot of activity and I do sometimes blow over and have a drink and listen to some music. So it's part of what I enjoy about Fairfax. So I would hope that if we had a lot of zoning changes downtown, that it wouldn't change any of the culture that we have currently, because that's kind of what I like about Fairfax. I also kind of wondered if increasing downtown housing is what people really want. Do people want to live upstairs from a bar or live around the corner from the bar? There are a lot of people that really want to have no yard and have difficulty parking. I feel like a lot of people move to Fairfax for something different than that. So I'm wondering if we do a lot of housing zoning changes and nobody shows up. So I'm not sure if that's sensible. I guess in conclusion, I would just say that I do support some increased housing in downtown. I do like the idea of some increased housing on the periphery as we move closer to White Hill, out by Cannon, and some increasing out there. I think that could be good. But everything comes down to the traffic going through town. I mean, it's crazy some days. I don't have to tell you, and we all know it's nutty sometimes. So, more people on the outside of town is just getting increased traffic through town. I just wonder about how some of these zoning changes would affect what we really like. The only other thing I would say is I was looking over the town plan, the general plan of 388 pages, by the way. It took a little bit to kind of get through it. But I did pick up one thing. It said on page, which has page numbers. We could work a little bit to fix the page number thing. This page number TC7 is like page 71. It's kind of crazy to me. But anyway, it says emerging themes. The community, this is from the, according to the general plan, emerging themes. The community universally values the small town feel of the downtown and wish to preserve it. The downtown is more than a physical resource. It sets the spirit of the community and demonstrates and fosters the values of the citizens. And I think if you just write that down or remember that as you proceed, I think that that's going to be the best way for us to proceed. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Phil.
Hi, my name is Phil Green, and I hope my voice lasts. I'm a planning commissioner, and I'm also an attorney. And I just want to say that, folks, this is the essence of democracy. This is, all of our hearings are, and the upcoming forum is certainly similar to the town meetings they had in the east of the United States. The one thing I don't think a lot of people realize about Ordinance 778, and that it didn't really originate so much with the town government here. It originated by owners of and saying, we want to be able to do something better with our properties. The town didn't ask people to dedicate properties to low-income housing or for any other purpose. The owners stepped up and said, we would like to do this. So that is really how properties were selected, if you can call it that, for the affordable housing process. Each and every, second point, each and every one of these properties, as they come up to some kind of development for affordable housing, will be subject to extensive hearings, which all of you can attend and object to traffic, you can object to density, and you can object to the use itself. So having ordinance 778 isn't something that's cast in stone. It's still subject to this wonderful democratic process. Now Fairfax must plan for the future. I dare say I heard Mr. Egger. He has a lot of intelligent things to say. But look at, Fairfax was incorporated in 1931. If we didn't have any change or zoning changes from then to now, I venture to say most of us would not have our houses to live in, and the town would look much like it does in the pristine scene we see in the town seal. So we have had change since 1931. We're going to continue to have change. But as a member of the Planning Commission and as a citizen, I can say we are doing this our way. We're doing this the way Fairfax wants to do this, not the way ABAG wants us to, or the state of California that requires us to have affordable housing. We are doing this our way. As an insider, I can promise you there's nothing weird going on here, and everybody should have a chance to be heard. Thank you very much.
If you could just confirm with Mr. Green, he was speaking as an individual and not as a member of the Planning Commission.
Yes. Bill, just confirm for us that, and for any other planning commissioners who are here, you're speaking as
Yeah, absolutely. I'm speaking as an individual. Since I'm speaking again, I just want to say, just like Lord Snowden in Fairfax, I came to this country as an immigrant from England exactly 57 years ago today. And I'm celebrating my 57th anniversary as an American. So I really appreciate this democratic process as a citizen. And the only reason I mentioned my planning commission background is, just so you know, I can see what's going on the inside, and there's no weird stuff happening. It's all geared towards hearing everybody, hearing all your opinions, and that should continue to happen. Thank you.
Could I just ask a point of order?
Sure.
There's comments being made and statements being made, and I know we discussed whether we're going to weigh in now or not, but I mean, I think the record should be corrected on a couple of statements that have been made. For example, this process is actually, the impetus for this process comes from the state of California, from housing and community development. There are government codes that impose mandates on local government to do this. And that's been the impetus to do this. That we have been struggling with this and negotiating with HCD for many, many years. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous to characterize this as a homegrown process when what's homegrown is our response to the mandates from the state. Another item, as far as our affordable housing sites, my understanding is that the state required us to make an inventory of potential affordable housing sites. So we did that at the behest of the state because we're required to do that in our general plan. The general plan elements are dictated by the state, and what's in those elements, the content in those elements is also dictated by the state. So I think the overall context of this needs to be a little clarified. I'm not casting aspersions on the Planning Commission's processes or our processes, but I think we've got to have a little bit of context about what's going on and why we are where we are. And I don't want to interfere with the flow, but I just don't want certain statements to be taken as gospel when I think the record and the law is actually a little bit different.
Okay?
If I could just add to this, as a former member of the General Plan Advisory Committee, who basically consisted of dozens of volunteers who went through these state mandates and basically tried to reach out to as many people in Fairfax as we could, and really have our general plan reflect what the people of Fairfax care about, and have it really be a plan for the community that we all know and love. And very often, I mean, I was talking with a planning consultant who was basically helping to do this, a lot of it pro bono, because he saw Fairfax representing a lot of what he loved about Mill Valley that he grew up in and lost. Is a lot of times you get a boilerplate that, you know, you're required to have a general plan, so a city hires a planner consultant, and they come up with some boilerplate and says, oh, there you go, we satisfy the letter of the law for the state. And that's what did not happen in Fairfax. We have a general plan. I mean, I hope people read it. It is a long document, and it's hard to really get your mind around some of the definitions in there. But it really does reflect the community that we know and love, and sets out, you know, what I hear from people is that they read it and they think, you know, this is great. This reflects my town. And this, you know, they feel good about it, and frankly, I feel good about it too. And the housing element is something that is very much dictated by the state. And so the Affordable Housing Committee that came from this council before I got basically grappled with some of those requirements and came up with creative ways to make it work for Fairfax. They looked at what kind of housing Fairfax needed for elderly housing, for low-income housing, workforce housing, things like that. And so the housing element reflects a lot of those needs. And, you know, it's obviously a back and forth negotiation thing, but this is what's in front of us right now. So,
As a point of process, I'm wondering, Larry, is that if comments are made from the public that need what we believe to be clarification, are we to address those as we go forward? Because I imagine that as this is public comment, we really can't intervene with our different maybe ways of seeing or understanding or defining these things at every step. So I think we're going to have to agree, or not, to how we're going to go through the rest of this public comment period, because you may we need to stop and address them. I think that there's something different.
Except that you guys have been weighing in all night on every comment, so.
Okay, why don't I suggest this? I think you
Let's
both
just make
raised, I think you both raised good points. On the one hand, I think Larry, you know, hears, as I have, statements that I would say, wow, that could use a clarification or a tweak. But I think what the staff is going to be able to do for the 12th is they're laboriously tallying and writing down and understanding these concerns, and those will be discussed. This is a wonderful opportunity to hear the concerns, but we would be here until this time tomorrow if we all, 5 of us, commented on every wise thing that we're hearing and trying to put it into context. So I might suggest that as staff listens carefully and writes down what's going on here, that we can pick up that conversation point by point, starting on the 12th. Again, I want to point out, starting on the 12th. So with that, Mark, please, start doing it.
I got 30 minutes already. Mark Bell, 63 Dominga, and I live in Fairfax. Well, no like me, I guess I'm okay. One thing from one of my secret sources that might be helpful is to have a map that you can project so that people can see exactly where the zoning designations are. My understanding is that the map was correct, but some of the wording was not, but the map was what was really the important thing. So I think at the meeting on the 12th, that would be a good thing to have for everyone. Secondly, I mean, I'd rather not have any growth. I mean, that's why we had Measure C, which went down to a pretty rousing defeat. And now we're looking at possibly a similar amount of units. However, you know, to go in there. If the church has some acreage that, isn't gonna have a super high density to it, it looks like a reasonable place there. School Street Plaza is kind of an underutilized area, looking at that. And if people want to put a second story, instead of having the facades in downtown, when were those foundations done? If it's anything like our foundation was in the 30s, it's like a 6-by-6-inch slab of concrete that when you hit it with a hammer, 5-foot chunks of it fall out. So whoever is going to take that on is putting in a second story for habitation is going to have some pretty major expense. So just, I think people should keep in mind that, approving these areas as potential sites isn't guaranteeing that things are going to be built because they have to meet certain requirements. The other thing that I find troubling is that when everyone's running for town council, people get up, at the council, they have the candidates night, and they want to hear, what are your views on affordable housing? And people who say, yes, we want to have affordable housing, I'm a strong proponent, get a round of applause. And so here you all are now, trying to do affordable housing to some degree, and, like all hell is broken loose. So it's kind of ironic that, a lot of the people who, support affordable housing don't when it comes down to the possibility of it existing. I don't have much faith in developments. I mean, I looked at Corte Madera. Not that long ago, Corte Madera used to be a nice place. What happened? What a disaster. The whole bourgeois shopping center and all those garbage houses they built probably in marshland. What happened with that? And then, the monstrosity that they're building now. College of Marin. Why did we give them $500 million to do that? Beats me. They just rebuilt the whole thing in the 70s. You tell me in 40 years they have to knock the whole thing down? What happened to Harvard, Cornell, Princeton? I don't see them knocking down all their buildings after 40 years. So I would have a lot of faith in watching developments and watching architects who are coming up with these great plans, but I realize that there are, pressures probably that we need to address. And I think you guys have done the best that you can. I don't see anyone here from staff or council, denigrating anyone who's outside the town limits of Fairfax. But of course, I put there, good luck. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Liz Fronberger, and I've lived in Fairfax for 26 years. I live up on Catholic Hill on San Gabriel Drive. So if all of those housing units are built, most of them will affect my driving, my commute, and I gotta tell you, I don't mind one bit. We need to have affordable housing here. I have a lot of young people who come in and out of my house because of my kids, and I am watching their college-age friends living 3-2 offices that are not legal to live in. They're all working 2 and 3 jobs. They're struggling to try to make ends meet. They're trying to make something of themselves. And I just really I hope that the conversation is open. I liked everything that Mark Bell had to say. This community will not come anywhere close to letting out of what happened in Corte Madera. I work in Corte Madera. That's been a terrible process. You guys are ensuring, and all of these voices here, both for and against, are ensuring that something very different is going to happen. But we need to have a place for our young people to live, as well as our seniors. So keep our coming up generations in mind. Thank you.
Frank Hager, 13 Meadowway, Fairfax. I'm speaking on item number 5. I urge the council to repeal ordinance number 778. As an author of Fairfax's planned development district and upland residential zoning, I can attest to the purpose and intent of those zones. The fatally flawed ordinance 778 is beyond salvaging. The increase in density for upland residential properties, including the Wall and Sky Ranch above Deer Park Villa, above Deer Park, was no typo. it was a calculated decision to raise the density by your consultants. The rezoning to planned district development was in violation of the town code. By setting the density before seeing the application, Fairfax put the cart before the horse, and the number of affordable housing units created right now is 0, none. When the Bennett House, the senior project for 70 units, bogged down over here, I shepherded that 70-unit project through the process. I had suggested using a planned district development zoning, and the architects, Rich Rushton and Art Chartwell, followed the zone through the 3-step planning process. That's how Bennett House, 70 units, ended up with 100% affordable units. They're all lower income units over there. The existing PDD zoning, at no time were the residents of Fairfax advised that Marin County Board of Supervisors had rezoned 2 properties for high-density housing right in our community. 30 units per acre, mixed use. The Oak Manor 7-Eleven property and the Sunnyside Growing Grounds just beyond Michael School. They're both zoned for high density. No one's discussed the kind of traffic impacts from those projects. The shocker for us is when we just found out Fairfax rezoned another 4.8 acres in town here for 20 units per acre, up to 98 units. The unannounced rezoning of the Jehovah's Witnesses church property on Sir Francis Drake next to the Lutheran Church. Lutheran Church is 20 acres, is just one more reason to rescind Ordinance 778. I don't know what the Planning Commission was thinking when they threw the Jehovah's Witnesses parcel, church parcel, in with the Lutheran Church and rezoned it planned district development. Should the council make the decision to repeal tonight, the day it goes into effect, we will dismiss the lawsuit. Thank you very much.
Let's try to hold the applause for both sides too. Yvette, good to see you again.
Yvette Lake too. I've still got a roof over my head, thanks to the generosity of some people I had been renting from, because I almost ended up on the street. I was looking for an apartment, an affordable apartment, $1,300 for 6 months. It does not exist. There is no affordable housing here. What you are calling affordable housing isn't going to be affordable for any low-income people, whether they're students or seniors. No one's going to take Section 8 anymore. Section 8 won't pay the rents that the landlords can get now. Left and right, all the low-income people of Fairfax are being made to move because their rents are being raised by hundreds of dollars a month, and they can't come up with that. So that's one part. I wish you had rent control here. I was really happy for about 7 or 8 years in a nice flat where I lived and felt like I was a part of the neighborhood, felt I was a part of the community here in Fairfax, and my rent started out at $1,100, and after all that time it had gone up to $1,300 in 7 or 8 years. And then the landlord wanted $1,750 for it. That's a rent increase of $450, so I had to move. And then things got worse from there. But the renters don't have any rights here, and the poor people can't afford any of the rents here. The other matter is no housing should be put on toxic waste dump, and no housing should be put on a busy street like Sir Francis Drake or by a freeway, anywhere where there's a lot of traffic, because of the health effects. Children are 6 to 8 times more likely to get leukemia and other cancers if they live within 350 yards of a busy street, a street with a lot of traffic. And that's only the beginning. Respiratory infections and cardiovascular problems, not just for children, but for everyone. And the people who usually need the affordable housing or low-income housing, whatever you want to call it, because we're just not going to get it, those people are usually the most vulnerable, health-wise. So I would urge you to pass a resolution that no new housing be developed in any area that is not safe for people's health. And that means nothing on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. And I sincerely hope that you do something to give some people some rights, because this isn't a democracy when poor people have no rights whatsoever. And when you can't pay rent, you don't have any rights. If you don't even have a home, what can you do? Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Sir? No, no, we're only yet, but push it in. Let's do it one more time.
Without Dominga, the last two speakers made a lot of good points. I have an 85-year-old dad and an 85-year-old mom. My mom's still working and paying rent. She could really use affordable housing. Maybe there really should be a change in this and talking about if there is elder housing, it would be rent-controlled elder housing. The other thing is, my 85-year-old dad, he can't walk upstairs. He can't walk distance. High density won't do him much of any good whatsoever. There's so many issues. ABAG is not going to pay for our water. We are totally maxed out on water in this county, and ABAG is not going to go out and get us water. The county, everybody in this county is going to pay for that water. And where are we going to get it from? All the other water districts around the state are also maxed out. So we're going to pay. I don't know where it comes from. I don't think there is such a thing as sensible growth in this town. We have a tree branch street pattern. We do not have a parallel street pattern like the cities. There is no place for cars to go. When we have full traffic, it is full traffic. It literally comes to a crawl. And that's every day. On a normal commute at maximum. I think this is just a function in denial. That this whole idea of trying to do something nice, of growing, I don't think that's possible. I don't think there's a bad idea to redo existing properties. We want to do affordable housing.
Thank you.
Lane Corwin, 629 Cascade Drive. I think people are really under a great misconception about what this is about. Because I hear everybody very upset about not having housing, but what they're proposing is not going to give the people that you want housing. It's not going to give students housing. It's not going to give, maybe the elders it will give, but it's not going to give anybody else what we're talking about.
You gotta look to us, so that.
Okay, but I don't think that they understand this. And I want to make that clear, because the elder housing, if we want to do that, I think we should do that, but I think we don't need to change the zoning to do that. And I think whatever project comes up, we should look at that and talk about it and decide, but I don't think we need to change the zoning, because it opens it up to so much more that we aren't even aware of. So I am against that, but I'm not against looking at what we need in this town and trying to meet the needs that everybody's talking about. I just don't think that the way that we're going about it now is going to really do that. And the other thing is that Fairfax has never been afraid to go up against the state. We are Fairfax, we make a stand and we say, no, this doesn't work for us. Why are we caving? Why are we caving? I don't understand this. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Christopher McManus. I live across from the church project on Sir Francis Drake.
years. But there was a takeaway on the Supreme Court ruling for me that was twofold. One was that Alima and Point Reyes, the area is completely polarized from the Supreme Court fight for the oyster farm. And the other thing is, nobody compromised on that. It went to the Supreme Court. Even Senator Feinstein came in and intervened to no avail. And what I'm looking at is like, it's kind of a take no prisoners atmosphere out here. And what I feel for me is this referendum to rescind Ordinance 778 is a product of manipulated data, manipulated codes, misleading information, and exaggerations. The idea to return to an old planning model and eliminate a comprehensive general plan with the housing element, it has problems. One problem is that it's an old plan. It comes from, I mean, the old zoning came from 1973. That was the Nixon administration. You know, the Vietnam War was going on. Abortion was illegal, and I was still dodging the draft. So I want to see this housing element brought into the 21st century. This new general plan is a good plan. It should supersede older, outdated plans. The housing element needs to be preserved. You know, that there's a reason for a comprehensive general plan. You know, you streamline the process, detailed procedure. The purpose is to ensure growth that is managed properly. Not having a comprehensive general plan without a housing element sends us back to the Nixon administration. And there was a reason for planning. You know, I planned how to get here today. I don't know how anybody else got here, you know, but, you know, people say they don't believe in planning. I wonder how they got here. And if you don't have a plan, you get lost. And that's what's happening now. We're getting lost in this process. And so, you know, I could go into a lot of issues. You know, you go into the 230 parcels that were rezoned. Well, it's number one, it's a comprehensive plan. Can you fault a comprehensive plan for being comprehensive? I don't think so. And I don't think that that's even true. And the wall property and the Sky Ranch densities, they weren't to be increased. You know, that was a typo. But we're getting into, you know, rezoning the Sir Francis Drake corridor, contrary to the rules of the 1973 PDD. Well, I don't know, you know. We're in this because Ordinance 770 is being rescinded. There's a reclassification here. It's, you know, but let me go to my neighborhood, the Church Project. It's called Peace Village Senior Housing. So it's Peace Village. And often I speak with the members of Christ Lutheran Church since I live across the street. The church can't use the old process because the assumption for them that they would be green-lighted through the housing element. The RCD developmental agency, the financiers, the bankers, the architects, the planners were all working on that assumption that they were part of the housing element. Now they're in limbo. And everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen. Nobody's moving. The banker's not going to release no money until this is figured out. And you can go step by step. The referendum is holding up the Church Project. There is no debate for this. So the real intent of the referendum is to block the implementation of the housing element. The real agenda is to defeat affordable housing and force Fairfax out of compliance with state and federal law. And so, in today's political atmosphere, blocking the housing element is a ploy to enhance political power with the not in my backyard people. Well, kind of literally, I have to say, this is my backyard. And so that you're saying that you're saving, but thanks, but no thanks. So saying no to the political opportunists, the agitation propaganda that has played on the fears of increased crime, depressed property values, issues with traffic and parking. We have seen these time and time again. We've also seen the results when a development comes to fruition, an enriched community with these unfounded fears forgotten. This is a political opportunity, yes, but for Fairfax to validate its reputation for tolerance, compassion, and progressiveness. The need is current. The need is urgent. Give our seniors the opportunity to continue to live in our community As the neighbor of Christ Lutheran Church, I'm here to provide my support in the strongest possible term for Peace Village affordable housing development for seniors. I also stand here as a lifelong Marin County resident in support of the housing element. Let us be an example for the rest of the Bay Area.
Gosh, I don't know, he just said everything I wanted to say. Very good, Chris. So, Wendy Callens, and evidently somebody wants to intimidate me that I don't have a right to speak because I live in Forest Knolls. Isn't that right?
Okay. Please, no catcalls from the audience.
Thank you very much. This is my town as much as it is anybody else's town, and I really resent that this intimidation continues, that somehow those of us who live over the hill and work in this town are not members of this community. And I really hope that that's not going to continue as far as these discussions are concerned, because there's a lot of people who work here in Fairfax who would love to live here, but they can't afford to live here. And this notion that somehow we're building these units, but it won't solve anybody's problem, well, it will. It's going to solve somebody's problem. The whole law of supply and demand means that if there is a great deal of demand and there's no supply, then costs go up. And the reason all of these landlords are getting away with raising the rents is because they know that people have nowhere else to go. And the fact that people are going around, not just here in Fairfax, but all over this county trying to stop any new affordable housing from happening, is the reason we are going to grow into a playground for the uber rich. And that's not the Marin that I want to live in. Now, I want to, Larry was talking about he couldn't let a few things stand that went by, and I can't let something stand that went by with one of the other speakers to insinuate that a consultant had an ulterior motive and deliberately changed the zoning is insulting. And I don't think you as a town council should let that kind of accusation stand of somebody that you've hired to work for you. There was no rezoning of the Wall property. There was no rezoning of Sky Ranch. If you look at the zoning ordinance, and I've read it, if you look at the housing element, and I've read that too, it is very specific about what is being rezoned, and those properties were not mentioned. Plus, it states very specifically in the zoning ordinance that in case of any discrepancy between the designation of land on the zoning map as lying within a particular zone and the designation of land within the tables, the zoning map shall control. There was no rezoning of 230 parcels. That was an excuse. And as Chris has just said, the excuse is to unravel a housing element of which countless volunteers spent a lot of time and a lot of thought to do something that, yes, was homegrown. Yes, there is a mandate from the state. You know why there's a mandate from the state? Because there are people who don't want housing in their neighborhood everywhere. 70% of Marin County says we have a housing problem. Only 30% says they want it in their own neighborhood. That's why there is a mandate from the state, to make sure that as we grow, we don't get to shuffle it off on somewhere else. As many people have said, let's just put it all in Oakland or Richmond or somewhere else. We don't need it here in Marin. The housing, this is a brilliant document that reflects the character of Fairfax, directing new housing to be small, compact, integrated into the downtown through the reuse of existing structures. It incorporates creative thinking and adheres to green planning principles. This is such a Fairfax document. This is a model that other communities should follow, and is really a sad day that you have to rescind this because somebody's put a gun to your head. Because this zoning ordinance should not be rescinded, and I ask you, when this is all over, hold on tight to your housing element, and don't start dismantling it one property at a time. Thank you.
of you on the council are gonna say, oh my God, this is not what we thought would happen, and it is what's gonna happen. You cannot expect most developers to do entire, 200 units or whatever that are low income. It has to be a small percentage, otherwise it won't happen. And for example, out of 180 units at Wincup, 18 will be low and moderate income. But a one-bedroom unit, a one-bedroom apartment will rent for $2,500 at Wincup. That is not cheap. It's not helping the poorer people, and everyone is being fooled who thinks it is. The other thing I want to say, I missed whatever you said about people giving their name and address, but I read in the newspaper, where Hannah mentioned that Renee asked the attorney that we not give our name and address to protect people from being robbed because crime is up in Fairfax. And that's what was the reason you were told, that you shouldn't have to give your name and address. Well, I want to congratulate the police department. In fact, crime has gone down in the last 5 years in Fairfax. Thank you.
Good evening.
I've been a resident of Fairfax in various ways since 1983, and a lot of people didn't recognize that because I also ran a shop in Mill Valley for 48 and a half years, and I was open 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in Fairfax, I've seen a lot of changes, and this thing about the problem of living quarters, whether it's from affordable housing to rent control at one end of the spectrum to the other, I think we desperately need rent control. And I think where I'm living is a good example right now. There's 80-something units. I can't say if they're based in Northern California, Southern California, or if it's just offshore money, but they're very, very expert at what they do. And when I say that, I mean they're able to pretty much break down the rent control in San Francisco by having relatives move in for a couple of months and then bump them out again and then raise the rent from there. What I'm looking at now, I heard one lady talk about $1,200 or $1,500 a month. I think I experienced $1,295 going to $1,450, and I thought, well, this is a huge corporation, but these guys aren't bad. Not so. Then it went to $1,775, then it was $2,100, and next year it's going to be $2,400 a quarter, and I guarantee you the year after that will be the same. And it's just, I've seen a lot of pain, I've seen a lot of people have to move out under severe pressure. It's not pleasant. It's a general atmosphere of angst and difficulty all around. But basically, I'm saying that I might not have thought of it in years past, but right now I think that we desperately need rent control.
Sir.
Good evening. My name is Bob Fagoli. For the record, my address is 3110 Oak Circle in San Antonio, California, United States of America. I'm here representing the Marin Environmental and Housing Collaborative. We are a group of affordable housing advocates and advocates for environmental protection. And our basic mission is to support the development of affordable housing on infill sites and mixed-use projects. We look at projects that don't require the development of green space.
Please continue.
As I was saying, we look for affordable housing projects that don't require the development of green space. We think your general plan, your housing element are excellent. They were developed over the course of 15 years with extensive citizen participation. However, it's obvious that you're taking a wise course right now, holding a public forum so that people can understand exactly what the issues are and inform you on the issues before you make your decision on how to move forward. In that light, we would recommend that you not take the first action to rescind ordinance 778 this evening, but wait until after you've had the public forum. We think that's the most transparent process that will help the public to be best informed as well as yourself. process that's really aimed at protecting the special character of Fairfax. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. David?
Hi, Dave Smadek. I live at 23A Broadway, right in the center of town, right above the Sleeping Lady. So we see a lot of things. We're business owners, we're homeowners, and we see the problems here. I've been watching it year by year. We have both a traffic problem, we have a problem with parking, we have a problem with just the way the layout of the town is, and I know there's been a lot of, we put off 3 workshops now because of this issue for the redesign and redevelopment of our town center. And there's a lot of emotion on all of this. I'm also president of the Chamber of Commerce. We've been working very hard at trying to come out with a statement, which we don't have ready just yet, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. We have employees that can't afford to live here. We have employees that can't even find rides to get home because they work after 11 and we don't have the mass transit anymore. And we're not the only business. The businesses are being affected drastically by the situation right now, and it does need to be planned for. And I also think that we have to preserve the integrity of Fairfax and its community. This is a place that has very special geographical location. It cannot withstand large development or large growth. And we have to plan very, very carefully if we want to preserve it, especially if we want to protect our open space. So what I think we need to do is all get together and start working together. And if somebody's not feeling like they're being included, let's include them. Whatever you guys do, I mean, I personally feel that the housing, the 2-acre zone for the Lutheran Church, and it should just be the 2 acres for the house, for the senior housing project. I think that's a great idea. But it also needs to be made sure that it's those 2 acres that you're focusing on. The Tenalima project for workforce housing, great idea, great concept. You know, parking needs to be thought of, and the effect on traffic and the environmental impact. All this needs to be looked at. The rezoning from highway commercial to central commercial. We're not saying build them, we're just saying, okay, there's a place where it could possibly happen, but it's still going to have to follow through with all the restrictions and requirements of building Fairfax. Whatever you guys do, whether, we certainly don't want the whole property being overdeveloped. I mean, there's a lot of community, I've been called several times over what was happening up there, and the town responded very diligently and put a stop to it. And I think the will is here with everybody. Everybody that I talk to on both sides of this issue feel almost exactly the same way. We just need to have an opportunity to get on the same page with this thing. So whether you repeal this and then let's rethink it again, or whether you pass it and fix the errors, right now, I think I would go with the previous speaker who said, at least wait for the forum before you make a decision tonight. Let's see what happens July 12th. Let's get all the issues out on the table. And then let's work together as a community. That's my goal. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Bonsoir. Lynn Chienbel, j'habite 63 Domiga, à think that anyway it's too loud, because it's not that much fun to have to scream at people right next to you in the evening because the band is so loud. So I don't think it's necessary to be this loud, and I think it would be possible to coexist. You just have to make sound barriers, make sure that your sound doesn't carry all over the place, but you can, I think you can coexist having the bars. I love having like bars with all the live music. I think it's beautiful and fun, and it's nice that people can go late at night and dance around. It's great. And it should definitely still happen, but you can be considerate about the people who live around. And I think that if the downtown was a good dancer, I think it would be a good thing for traffic, for public transportation. Be more likely than to have buses more often or something. So thank you, I think I'm done. Thank you. Okay.
Good evening.
My name is Amy, I'm the Gosman. I live in Fairfax, and I am a member of the council at Christ Lutheran Church. I'd like to just thank you guys for all your work and for everybody's opinions. And I really feel sometimes that we're kind of the meat and the sandwich in this situation. And I know that anybody who served on any council knows what you're going through, and it's not easy because you can't please everybody all of the time. And whether you rescind or don't rescind, I feel that we're probably going to become very close friends as we go through the rezoning process with you over the years ahead, and hopefully we'll manage to keep our funding in place. And I just wanted to let you know we're really grateful for all the support we've felt. We thought we just had a little project that we were doing on the edge of town that nobody would really notice, and it's become a bit of a touchstone in the situation. We keep getting letters and comments of support, and I brought one from Lighthouse in Santa Fe that I'd like to pass on to you. Just unsolicited support from all over the place and from general members of the community, and we just really we feel really blessed by that. And our project is in its infancy, yet its infancy has been the topic of much debate. And we haven't even really got going on it yet. And that process will also include a lot of town input and conversation. So it's just in the beginning phases, and I think it's got potential. Whether we rescind or not, I just want to say I'm really sad that it's come to so much work having to be restarted, because that's really tough for you guys, and I just think that's, the whole community feels like we're starting over again, and maybe that you can do it right this time, but I'm sure you felt that when you did it the first time. So I just wanted to say that hang in there. It's an incredible process, and not an easy one, and we're really, really grateful for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's always fun to come to this council here. I really enjoy talking to one of the more intelligent councils in the county. And thank you for giving this item a public hearing. This really is the best show in town, and I want to thank you for hearing every side. And I'd also like to point out that affordable housing is not the issue here. What is the issue is the huge amounts of public money that have been wasted on this process. And I was here at the meeting when Larry asked to wait. Please wait, and let's look at this document, let's look at all the errors in the document, and let's stop the process. And so it's unfortunate that people had to spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort outside gathering petition signatures and getting the referendum certified now. And it's just too bad. But there is a bright spot in this whole thing, and that, just like the lovely wind cup that we see along 101, and soon to be another high-rise hotel next to it, and who knows what else, that this has really woken up the residents of Fairfax who want to know more about what's planned for their town. And so it really isn't a
huge waste of time because you really need to let the people vote. You need to have a free, honest, public discussion about this situation, as well as you need to bring in the rest of the Ross Valley. We've got plans. San Anselmo is certainly going to be amassing many, many housing units. There is a trolley coming, as you know, whether you like it or not. There is plans for San Rafael, high density all along the Miracle Mile and up along Sir Francis Drake. How is that going to impact Fairfax? Fairfax putting all its housing in here, as well as out of here with Woodacre, Lagunitas. Let's look at all the people that are going to be packed into the Ross Valley. And let's look at the fire danger we have. Let's look at all the other dangers we have. I mean, you have wasted so much money that could be spent fixing potholes in the roads in this town, and you have spent it on consultants and staff that probably is paid over $150,000 a year that can't seem to do a right job. I only use $150,000 because that, I know, was what Debbie Stutzman was being paid about 5 years ago in San Anselmo. So please, I ask you, let the people vote on this issue. You'll have a fair dialogue, and this is not about affordable housing. It's about the future of Fairfax and the future of the Ross Valley. Thank you.
I noticed that you
Just,
like
before
residents.
you speak, what's your salary? You're the highest paid employee in this town.
It's $140,000.
Okay. Anybody else? Jim, what's your salary? Okay. Just to be sure, nobody in this town gets paid $150,000. Valerie, please.
You know, David, do me a favor, since we're not, people who don't want to have themselves introduced, I prefer you don't use my name on it. It makes me feel like you're being familiar in a way that I don't feel is reciprocal, so let's just drop that from now on. I really appreciate it. Thank you. The other thing is, I think it's time for Fairfax to sit down with other Ross Valley City Councils and talk about where the Ross Valley is going. I really like what the last speaker said about that. Before all the surrounding cities pass these ADAC growth quotas, we have one road in and out of Sir Francis Drake, and we're just going to create a parking lot out there during commute hours. And I'll tell you, right now I'm working up in Nevada, and I go at 8 o'clock. And if I go at 9 o'clock, it takes me 20 minutes. If I go at 8 o'clock, it takes me 40 minutes to 1 hour to go from Fairfax to Nevada. And I'm not talking about far Nevada, I'm just talking about the beginning of Nevada. So, you know, I watch Greylock every day. I watch it on 101, and I experience it in Fairfax. And if I could ride a bike there, I would, but it's not part of what I can do right now. All right, so I thought we were coming here to talk about the upzoning and density and the rezoning of all the major properties in Fairfax. That's been my concern. The One Bay Area Plan, Transportation and Marin folks have done a really good job of misdirecting the conversations. Ordinance number 780 is not about affordable housing. In fact, the plan doesn't even mention affordable housing. It's very interesting how the misdirection has gone, and it really reminds me of what I have seen going to meetings in Larkspur, going to meetings in Mill Valley, going to meetings in Corte Madera. Same people here and there. That's why I wanted people to say who they were affiliated with, for instance. Someone who comes in here and says, oh, I'm a Fairfax resident. Well, they recently lived in San Rafael. They also have been one of the shepherds for One Bay Area Plan, and I've seen this woman ushering at One Bay Area Plan for Kinsey and Rice. So they're not just like innocent bystanders who just love our town, or like the Marin Bicycle Coalition, who's now funded by Transportation Authority of Marin. A little bit conflict of interest going on. So it's not about somebody living in Forest Knolls or Lagunitas or San Rafael. It's where do these people get their money? Who's putting them up to it? What are their interests? Are there conflicts here? And we're not hearing about that. We haven't discussed it, and it's really important. We had people from PG&E here in this room who didn't identify themselves. And when I asked them how many people are in this room who are from PG&E, 2/3 of the audience raised their hand. No not what this issue is about at all. I don't think so. I'm totally for people to be taken care of in the ways they need to be taken care of. But this other stuff, there's another agenda, and I don't like it. And so I'm going to say it. And there's no assurance that any that any current residents or parents or children have any access to any housing that may be built in Fairfax. That was clarified at the Planning Commission. We haven't talked about it here at the council, but we really should. The Planning Commission admitted that that was true. Also, the housing that was put forward by the church does not accommodate really low-income people. And I was really glad to hear the church acknowledge that at the last meeting and say they would like to address it. I really appreciated that. On the question of the church, I think if they're allowed higher density than normal, we really need to hammer out the problems of parking. I know from going to the neighborhood now around Bennett House that there is a waiting line for parking places there. The residents want to drive. They live closer to downtown than anyone at the Lutheran Church will. And our public transportation system sucks. It just does not work, and it's really scary if you're worried about having a hip fracture. Because some of those Golden Gate Transit buses are just not careful, and I know I've stepped onto them and they take off. And if you are not capable of grabbing on, you're in deep trouble. And also, I'm going to make the same point I made before. A lot of people who are seniors and low income, the last thing they give up is their car. And why? Because they might have to move into it. Yvette's not kidding when she talks about that. I went with her and tried to help her. There is no housing, and when you go there, you know what they do now? They bid it up. People might start at $1,200. By the time you get out, it's $1,800, $2,000. I talked to one of the workers at Good Earth. She's one of the highest paid cashiers over there. She makes $2,000 a month. She had to leave her home in Fairfax. She now commutes from Nevada. Most of the workers there do. And why? Because the housing gets bid up. Because all these people are coming over from Oakland and San Francisco because their housing just got decimated. Because they overturned their rent control. They have nowhere to go. They come here and they bid it up. It's unbelievable what's happening. Go out there and apply for a house and see what happens to you. Look at the junk that you might get to move into for $2,000. So it wasn't that she couldn't even afford the house. I mean, it would have been most of her money where she lived. But they required her to show that she could do twice that amount per month if she had to. Why? Well, maybe they're going to jack the rents again. Pretty interesting, I think. So I think there's a lot of things we need to address, and we haven't talked about affordable housing, not real affordable housing. You know, maybe firefighters and police, hopefully they have good enough unions to hold on to their jobs, same with the teachers. But most other people don't have union jobs. You think any of these businesses in our town offer union jobs? They don't, not one, not one. So I think that's something we could talk about too. I think affordable housing is a separate issue, and we should talk about it. But we need to address the problem that will come to us through this ordinance. And I think we really need to have a vote here. That's what I thought we were coming here. I think, again, we're having all this obfuscation of that it's about affordable housing. My God, we need to talk about affordable housing. It's really important, but that's not what this is. I still want to know where these upzoning problems came from. And in Larkspur, the way it was addressed. They just tossed out, the Larkspur Council tossed out the Larkspur Landing project thanks to the hard work of the people who understood what gridlock would look like in their community and how their council was being misdirected by staff. There were nearly 400 residents in the room, and many advocated that staff who had misdirected their staff get the toss as well. If you want to hear the testimony, it was really great. Go to the Larkspur Council. Also at that place, that's where people outed the people from CALM and Marin Transportation Authority of Marin, and the One Bay Area people, and the one Bay Area plan people, and those people got booed out of the room. You know what? If those people keep coming here and advocating and pretending they're somebody else, same thing's gonna happen here. So, there's so much more. I guess that's good enough. Thank you.
Easy, thanks for coming back.
Hi, my name is Michelle Garcia, I live here in Fairfax. I want to address the issue of having community meetings, and I would like to thank the town council and really taking, and some members in particular, really taking the time to really think about and look at and figure out how to reach out to the various communities here in Fairfax that may not be represented in this room today. I would like to say that if we're going to have a town workshop one, I personally would like to see a series of them. I cannot make one of the town council, can't make the initial workshop meeting. I think that also if we're going to talk about this, I have a master's degree in public administration. Half of this flies over my head when you start talking about the nuance, the PDD, CC, all the different planning codes. I get really confused. And if you're looking at outreaching to a population whose English may not be their first language, whether it's French or Spanish or Chinese, that it needs to be explained in plain English, in regular layman's English, not in legalese or planningese or whatever jargon that's involved in it. I would also like to see that if we're going to have a series of workshops, that there be considered childcare options for families. I can come here because my husband stays home with the kids, but not everybody has that option, regardless of your economic strata. You can be extremely wealthy and may not be able to attend because of childcare needs. You can be extremely low income and not be able to attend because of childcare needs. So I'd like to see some of that considered as well. And then also, I would like to say that there's a couple of things I would like to address about the fact that people addressing where they live. It's actually part of the Brown Act. It's part of my work with Marin Grassroots and the Boards and Leadership Institute, and also as a member of the Child Care Commission. I am representing Michelle Garcia, also a resident of Fairfax and affiliated with a bunch of other things. But that it's actually part of the Brown Act that you can't force a person to state their residency. I was learning that at the same time that this was coming up, that we were re-looking at our role as commissioners on the Child Care Commission and on the Boards and Leadership Commission, and you can't do it, it's in violation of the Brown Act. It's culture, and this is what I was clarified, it is culture of the town of Fairfax that people do address their name and their address. That is the culture. The culture versus law are two very different things. It's also the culture and law that two very different things are that we do have a 3-minute clock, yet many people are allowed, myself included, are allowed to go beyond the 3 minutes that's dictated by the clock in front of me. I also believe that if we're going to have a series of workshops, that there needs to be a clock. I'm here to talk about rent control. I can't stay much longer. I do have to get up and go to my day job in the morning. So I would also like to look at there is some time constraint. I understand Mr. Wiesenthal's idea, that it is Fairfax and will be organized chaos, but not all of us can work within the confines of organized chaos. We do have other things happening in our lives. And so I would like to also see some time constraint, and great that we're having this public forum, but I don't know when we're going to be able to address the issue of rent control, which I would like to address, which is item number 9, and we are only on item number 4, 5, and 6, and it's almost
In all candor, without jumping ahead, I do think it might be challenging to discuss that item because following this item, we have to consider the budget, a Measure I. As much as we would all like to complete everything that's on our agenda, it might be a bit challenging to get to that this evening. We'll have a much better idea at 10 o'clock when we're mandated to sort of set forth exactly what we'll be able to do. But I appreciate that you would like to discuss this. And of course, if we don't get to it tonight, it certainly will be on another agenda. So it's not as if you will lose the opportunity to discuss it.
So I guess my just reason in bringing that up is that although it's nice that we're having this really lengthy and
you are correct, and on an issue or a council meeting in which issues of much, I don't want to say less weight, but issues, that are more, common that we address, usually we have the time frame and the clock, and boom, when it's over, I kind of look at you and say, but this is different. This is different, and so I am relaxing the time, not only the fact that we're discussing 3 items, and so I'm allowing people almost 9 minutes to talk about these items. So that's the reason here tonight.
No, and I understand that, that's why I brought up culture, but what I guess I'm only just saying is in reference to what I would like to see at a workshop. That's just my idea, what I'd like to see at a workshop. From 1 o'clock till in the afternoon, till 10 o'clock in the afternoon, is quite hard for me. So that's what I would like to see.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I live in Fairfax. I just wanted to, first off, we did a change.org petition to just gather different people's ideas about this issue. It's not a referendum petition, it's just informational, so I wanted to submit that. I don't know how you do that, but.
Hand it to the clerk.
Thank you. And the other thing is just that we keep trying to, make this little homesteading process to try to keep people talking about this and what they want to see out of the housing element, what they would like to see by way of affordable housing, whether it be rent control and other combinations of built housing. So I would like to keep that going and keep that going in a way where people are talking with each other as opposed to, shouting opinions at each other, which is what we seem to kind of do with this process, even though there's some good things about it. So, keep hoping that that will happen at the workshops, and that also there are a lot of different ways to develop affordable housing and to fund it. And I think that that should also, be on the table, that there's not just one thing, one way all the time. We're not building the wind cup or whatever it is here. We're doing something different, or we have the option to do something different. And I know that's been a project that people aren't happy about, but it isn't the only thing. So I hope that would be covered. I can't go to that workshop, so that's why I'm yakking a lot tonight. But I just hope that it's a really productive workshop and not one where people just kind of, get up and spew at each other and then sit down. That there's a way that people can talk to each other in a useful way. I also wanted to mention that, a lot of us affiliate with lots of groups. I'm affiliated with the Sierra Club, and I have been for years, and it shouldn't be held against me. It's an outside group. It's not part of Fairfax. I know some people here are affiliated with Marin Knights Against Density or whatever it is. That's also an outside group, and it shouldn't be a matter of shame to you that you affiliate with a political group that you feel strongly about. That should be something we should be somewhat proud of, and not something that we should be standing here, excoriating people for. A lot of people feel strongly on either side of the issue, and so I want to put that out there. And finally, there's nothing in the Crown Act that says that we need to specify exactly what our relationships are to various sorts of, unless it's a conflict of interest and we're serving in some sort of public capacity. I just think it's really funny, like there's nothing that says that in talking about affordable housing or zoning that we need to stand up here and say, my association with developers is nil or whatever. And mine is, but I haven't been showing up at meetings all around town. I show up at these meetings or all around the county, and I just want to keep that clear that we can affiliate with other groups. That's kind of okay. It's not a nefarious or horrible thing, and I don't want to feel like intimidated. And I think some of the reason I don't want to give my address sometimes is I'm hearing these angry, rageful people whose politics is about anger. I want to give them my address. What are they going to do? Show up at my yard and throw books through my window? I don't know. So, I just want to get the tone of the debate down to a point. Well, if you're going to call yourself mad, you want to just keep the tone of the debate at some point where people feel safe to talk. Honestly, some people have tonight where they go a little bit of a football counts. I think that's great. So let's keep that going.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. On May 29th, our planning commission took a very appropriate action at that time to uphold the town's general plan and housing element, which had previously been adopted after extensive public comment. And it is an excellent general plan that preserves the town's historic character that we all love. At that time, it appeared as though a repeal may not be required, but clearly that's not the case. Repealing now or at the next meeting is absolutely necessary because it does give the town the best options for moving forward without extensive delays. So I now urge the town to repeal 778, not because it's an inappropriate or a bad ordinance, but because of the political situation that's been created and the confusion. But I also urge you to move forward simultaneously with the community workshops and the public hearings as may be required to correct the errata and the questions that were specifically identified at the March 5, 2014 public hearing to adopt Ordinance 778, but please do so in a timely manner. Clarifying general plan policies and review of proposed zoning for different parcels, PUDs, PDAs in a systematic manner is certainly appropriate, but do move forward. Do not allow the process to digress into what I hear is an overreaching, overarching plan to review or amend adopted policies of the general plan. That would be a separate process. The workshops and corrections to errata should be considered as being in addition to moving forward with the approval of a zoning map that is required, not instead of approving a zoning map to bring us into conformance with our general plan. It should be made clear that proposals to amend basic policies adopted in our excellent general plan and housing element is not the intent of this process and cannot be entertained. In order to continue to preserve the character of Fairfax, we must have a fully adopted general plan with all its elemental components as required by state law. I'm extremely happy that the town has excellent documentation of the most elaborate citizen participation process in history, I believe, in adopting our plan, and that all of that is in the formal record for future reference. And I expect to see everyone in this room and those of you watching on television and people with any questions to attend the workshops, the one on the 12th and subsequent workshops, and participate in the process of implementing a cohesive and integrated vision of our community's future. The time to act truly is now. While ultimately this issue has implications for affordable housing, don't let people's misinformation about housing scare you. Don't let it confuse the process. We need to keep our eye on the ball here. The time to support affordable housing has not yet come. This is not a decision this evening about affordable housing. Save your housing energies for the right time, which I might add is when there's an actual proposal to develop affordable housing before us, at which time there will be an incredibly intensive review process in the community, at the Planning Commission, and the Town Council. So that would be the appropriate time for that discussion, which is sure to come. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. David Haskell, 25 Drive, here in Fairfax. Much of my comments really follow on from David's snapback. As the president of our Chamber of Commerce, I'm also an officer of that organization. I've been involved in the formulation of the Chamber of Commerce position. And after extensive deliberation and consultation, and what I thought was clarity, I come to this meeting, and this whole meeting challenges my clarity now at the moment. What we believe we were talking about. There are elements there that are utterly important for this city and county to carry forward. The zoning of the highway commercial to be zoned into central commercial, we're strongly in favor of. I don't speak on behalf of the chamber today.
months ago, we were sitting in this room challenged to our bone because we didn't have the appropriate ordinance to say no to Chevrolet. Unless we have that central zoning covering all of our downtown area, we are prone to franchising agencies that we don't want. It was only through the good work of you, council, who looked deeply into the problem at that property, but we identified that there was a better reason to say no than just simply an illegal no to franchise. So that issue is paramount to many of us, and it was dear to hundreds of people who came before you and spent hours to make sure that it never happened again. The transfer of the Sir Francis Drake from about, Good Earth up to the St. Rita property is what I understand is being rezoned. It's being rezoned so it looks like the other side of the street. It has the same zoning coordinates this building is happening. Allows secondary apartments above. It doesn't create them, it just allows them. And it also allows us to say no to franchises throughout the whole area that we consider our downtown. I believe that to be fundamentally a defense of our character and of who we are in Fairfax. So let us not lose sight of that. I think the second element that's critical to us is what areas are designated as PDDs? What are we going to designate? What are we going to develop? And there's so much confusion going on. And I almost take you, Larry, maybe your original comment about separating the wheat from the chaff might have been very useful because there's been so much misinformation being presented in this hearing today. It was my understanding that we had 3 properties, Pendleton, the Lutheran Church, and then we have the third property, School Street. And School Street is almost, I almost forgot it because in some ways it's almost like, oh, School Street. It's an underdeveloped area that could change, but may not change for 50 years. And that's why I kind of slipped my mind. But the other, as we lead forward, if those are the 3 areas that are being designated, which we were led to believe, we can support that. Excellent ideas. Very sound. Good help for seniors. And we also start creating a diversity of habitation choices. We have no co-housing in this community. We have no ability for people to live together in boarding house. We have none of this kind of ability to actually go back into our history, to actually refine out who we are. It's not about going forward necessarily, looking like the stack and pack stuff that all of us abhor. I think it's about finding our basic roots and looking at them and protecting them. And in saying that, one of the things that disturbs me, and I need clarification from staff, is if our housing element is not approved, and somehow it gets lost in this repeal of 778, then the much-needed $300,000 grant from the state that will allow us to look at our downtown design, will we lose that? I understand that it has to be approved, and it was originally approved, and now if it's going to be rescinded, you've got to do something else, and we'll lose it if it's not approved by January 15th, 2015. And then if we lose that $300,000, then are we really going to be able to talk about our transportation problems? I mean, I get it. We're all sick and tired of this stack and pack on Sir Francis Drake. Schools in it, we can't move. But we've got to find a way out of it. And repealing 778 leads us nowhere. It's a do-nothing option. It's saying, I accept the existing status quo, and I know it's getting worse and worse, but it's nonsense. We have to act. We have to put that $300,000 to good work. I've spoken with many of you on the council about the need to create a new transit facility in this town. One that isn't just about Golden Gate buses, but allows Uber, allows Lyft, allows car share when you go. And so that in some ways I look at our traffic and our parking problems, and I kind of think it's not really traffic problem, it's tried us in the 20th century. And I would suggest that that's probably the norm in this town. 4 cars in a garage filled with whatever. And somebody says this is a parking problem? And then we have buses where I get 20 to the hour, I get to take the bus that leads me to Centerville, and I don't know where it's gonna lead me to. We need this $300,000. We need to look at how we're gonna create a viable transit center, if we're gonna get a new trolley, if we're gonna have opportunities to use our cell phones to get Uber, the $15 billion corporation that can save our community. I mean, there are things there that we don't have a chance to talk about. We don't get the $300,000. If we don't get the housing element, we don't get the money. And so tonight, I really beseech you, let's cut the wheat from the chaff. Let's decide what we as a community truly want. And I believe that our housing element mandates by the state can be met in a Fairfaxian fashion. And those who know Gardner Dave and know me, I'm born and bred permaculturist. And the issue of permaculture is the solution to the problem is in the problem itself. And I believe that many of our housing issues, I live in a 4-bedroom house, and we only have 1 bedroom. We need to look at getting second units. And so I ask you to please help, clarify, look at what we're trying to achieve, and look forward to coming forward with firm recommendations from the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hello. I'm Jennifer Hammond, I live in Fairfax, California. I'm here today speaking as an individual. I'm not here speaking on behalf of any affiliation or organization. First, I would just like to encourage the town to schedule more than one workshop. I know the first one is this Saturday, but I think we definitely need more, and I think you've already reflected that that's going to happen. And I would also like to encourage you not to repeal the ordinance until those workshops have been completed, so we get all the feedback from the community first. It seems to make more sense. And ultimately, that I'm concerned about that we maintain our housing element in our general plan. It was mandated by the state, but I know the people who put this together, many of them, and they're good people, they're intelligent people, they put together an amazing plan. We have one of the best planning directors around. So I just really want to support the general plan and the housing element. And, have that be the final goal is to keep that in place. Because I think planning is very important. You have to set a vision for the town in order to kind of get to where you want to go as a community. If you don't have a plan, you may have a future that you don't really want in the future. So anyway, yes, I would encourage not repeal tonight, get the feedback from the community, and move from there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jody. Jody.
Jody Timms, 290 Cascade, homeowner in Fairfax for 22 years. Basically, I'd just like to encourage the town council tonight to continue this matter until July 16th. I also feel we need at least one workshop that's based on the kind of time and voice that people need to give to this. I don't think we're in a rush at this point. For me, it's really important to have identified what really are the issues and the concerns that some people are alluding to, and also what are the proposed solutions. Personally, I don't have any significant issues with Ordinance 778, save the errors that need to be addressed in it, but I would really like to hear some more specific details from those who are opposed to moving forward. Is it the ordinance? Is it the housing element? Is it the general plan? Is it bits and pieces of all three? There's definitely a lot of hostility, a lot of suspicion, a lot of distrust, and I'm not sure I really understand what's behind all that. I have an impression, but I'd like to hear more specifically from people who are in that camp. I also feel that before we repeal the ordinance, I would really like to know what's going to The other is do 230 parcels one at a time. And there's got to be something in between. I think we need more conversation about, if this isn't what we like, what do we like? I feel like there's also a lot of legal issues that haven't really been put on the table. I have some questions about. So I would really like to go to the workshop. I intend to be there. After hearing and participating in that discussion, I think I and probably all of us would have a better idea of what our preferences are, what our choices are for moving forward, and can lend our recommendations or our support to the council that will carry it forward. I personally really think that we should comply with state law. I think we should have our certified housing element. And I also really believe in continuous quality improvement. All of our documents, our ordinances, our plans should always be readdressed and looked at for change on an ongoing basis. I'm a really strong environmentalist. I'm really worried about the world that we're all going to be facing, given the climate change and all the issues that that's going to bring. I think we're all in pretty serious denial about what that is going to involve. I think it's going to require huge amounts of creativity and imagination to address it. Things I'm not even sure, at least those of us over 30, have the ability to have that kind of imagination. I'm looking to the younger generation to help us a lot in those areas. But I really think it's important to keep that larger context in mind as we try to figure out how to deal with these every day-to-day issues of housing and population growth and logistics and traffic and everything else. So in conclusion, I just want to say I do honor very much the process that has brought us to this point. I'm very dedicated and interested in participatory democracy, and I really hope that whatever we do really supports the integrity of our town. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry.
Joe's Bowden, 98 Porters, and I'm probably the same thing that has already been said tonight, so I'm going to try to be brief. But I really don't think that there is as great a gap as people are portraying this to be. I think that there's a lot of agreement that we would all like to see the elderly housing at the Lutheran Church. I think that everybody is pretty much in favor of the general plan. And I think the way to move forward is to go ahead with repeal of 776 and to take it apart and to take it one step at a time. And the first thing to do is pass the general plan and then take the PPDs, which I thought there were 3, now there's 4. That was a little confusing, but to take those one at a time. And the first one to do would be the Lutheran Church. So we put that on the fast track. And when we go over these things, we go over them the way we go over any zone with geology, hydrology, soils reports, surveys, traffic reports, water, sewage, noticing the neighbors, talking to the owners, toxic reports, all the things that get included when we do rezoning, and just do them one at a time. And I think the way forward for that is repeal and get the process going in a way that most people here, I think, would agree with. That's it.
Thank you. Sir?
Yes, in a ditto sort of way with a person, I agree with you need to really have a fresh start here. There were 1,000 signatures that were gathered. They need to be respected, I think. And even though there's all the advocates that have come here tonight who are generally involved in this in many, many ways, the general public has spoken, and I think it would be wise if you listen to them. I also want to address the issue of the $300,000. Every community in Marin County is being subjected to this bribery, and it's just a bribe. It is a way of enforcing people to behave in a way they otherwise would not, even if it's against their interest. And I found that these funds that end up being handed out, they go to consultants, but I guarantee nothing seems to ever come of it. I've been through this process in Mill Valley for 12 years now, and nothing has come of it, except we have basically laid out huge amounts of money to traffic consultants. It's all been a gigantic waste. Now, I want to also talk a little about affordable housing and about the project down there at Winco. I'll approach it from a businessman's point of view. This is a $70 million project, 180 units. The cost of the project has to be recovered. The only way to recover it is through rents. The average two-bedroom rents on an 1,100 square foot unit there is going to be $3,800 a month. That's what it's going to cost to live there. And that's because that's what it costs to recoup the construction cost. This is a very expensive county to build in. And it's not going to get cheaper. So building affordable housing actually means building, if you're talking about actual affordable housing, you're talking about subsidized housing. And unless the subsidies are somewhere in place, the people who are going to come and build are going to build for profit. And they're going to build and they're going to, if they put a 800 square foot unit anywhere in this county, it's going to be at least $2,500 a month to get your money back out of this. Because 800 square feet in this county is going to cost between $350,000 and $500,000 to build. And that's just a fact of life. And this is a problem that the state of California is facing now. We have an out-of-control population growth, not due to the fact that people are having so many children here in California. We have a wide open border. And the fact of the matter is we have a gigantic surge of people coming here. And we also have another problem. We have a terrible employment situation in the state of California. I mean, the real, and I won't finish this, so just thought, you're building housing, but where's the jobs? I think that the whole thing is upside down. When I was a kid, we were building jobs, and we had good jobs. We had a vibrant, hugely growing economy, and everybody could afford a place to live. This is not what we have now. And I think this thing has to get balanced this way if we're going to be thinking and living in